Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Duval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game.
And I'm Travis Holmes with BigCatCountry.com.
And you're listening to this thing on the Believe Podcast Network. Welcome in, apparently, you Duval Divers that are camping parked in the comments before the show starts. First of all, I love that. That is one of my favorite things when that happens here on the show as a host. I'm not going to lie. But apparently you weren't hiding under a rock like I was. I have to say like I was, because Travis came on, let you guys know about the Jakobi Meyers trade here on the Duval Dive and all that on all the YouTubes and things. And hey, if you have a controlled approach to your life, you're already subscribed and getting notifications. Heard Travis talk about it. Son staying in the comments believes that Jakobi Meyers is a super solid player with good hands. If he starts, we know it's a Trevor. If he starts dropping, we know it's a Trevor problem. What's the depth chart going to look like when Travis Hunter gets back? Well, let me lead with this, because what this tells me is just exactly how hurt everybody is. And I know we know about the Travis Hunters and the Dyami Browns and all that going on. What surprises me is the Tim Patricks getting hurt and some of these other guys further down that Tim Jones is making plays. We alluded to that in the post game, on the Duval Dive Live on Sunday night. And I don't want to say this feels like a survival move. That feels a little much, but having Jakobi Meyers and across from, let's say, a Parker Washington maybe upgrades you a little bit based on what's been going on with injuries and stuff. I'm sure you talked to it some, Travis, but hey, not bad to do what they did to get a former first round pick, right? I mean, you could have done a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I mean, we already chopped it up and talked about it. The Jaguars traded their higher fourth of the two between theirs and the Minnesota pick, whichever one ended up being the higher one. So that's why it's a conditional fourth round pick and a 6th round pick for Jakobi Meyers. And they take on that contract, $5.3 million. And that's from our guys over at Spot Track. And it was a really good trade for the Jaguars. We talked about it all the time, and it's so much of a good trade that we figured it was going to be time to even rehash it, because you obviously have the Jacksonville Jaguars having their best contested catch receiver on the roster in this edition, 61% per Pro Football Focus. Shout out Dan Griffiths for putting that information out there, but also giving us the comparison to the other Jaguar receivers. You got Parker Washington at 56.5%, and he shows it on the film. That's the biggest part about this. I want to just point out on this tweet that you're looking at. You got Dyami Brown. Wait a minute. Wait. Go back to the contested catch.
I had it, but you jumped in here. Hold on. Let me find it.
I didn't click a thing. That was all you. No, you got. So you have Jakobi Meyers at 61% as far as his contested catch rate. You have Parker Washington, who has a 56% contested catch rate. And in my head, I'm like, dude, that's crazy, because Parker Washington is someone who looks like they're able to catch, contested catches pretty often, pretty frequently. And then Tim Patrick is 46%, Dyami Brown, 41, Brian Thomas Jr., 41. And the reason I point that out is because right as it stands right now, the one that was most comfortable in this Jacksonville Jaguars offense is Parker Washington. And I don't think that's an argument right now. Like, he's the one who's most comfortable going across the middle of the field. He's the one that's most comfortable taking those hits. And he's the one that's most comfortable going up and getting the ball in those, small throwing areas, basically, where you're expecting to have contact, you're expecting to be hit. And because of that, I'm just like, no. And then you bring in another guy that's even remotely similar to that. Again, I don't want to say he's going to be Cooper Kupp or anything along those lines, but if you have another guy who is prime Tyler Lockett like, or Steve Smith like, or Danny Amendola like, who's able to run those option routes and kind of take that contact and just come down with the ball no matter what, that has a seriously material impact on the offense. Like, and to have multiple guys like that is obviously going to be beneficial to this Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, I think you say plenty there. I mean, making catches in big moments there. That's what they're looking for, period. Taking nothing, of course, from Parker Washington. I mean, the fact that we're having to have shorts literally named. He had a good game. It's not that heavy. Duval Dive YouTube channel, of course. Seeing that happen and the opportunity to foster another guy like this, I think is awesome. And say what you will for even the Trevor critics, I think even they would argue from his perspective, it's an upgrade at quarterback, receiving balls from Trevor Lawrence over Geno Smith.
I mean, that's a big part of the conversation, though. I mean, that really is a big part of the conversation because everyone's kind of talking about the fact that Jakobi's had such an up and down season with Geno Smith and that Chip Kelly offense. Yes, I get it, but that also needs to go into your evaluation, right? Like Geno's, if you were to look at a passing chart for Geno Smith in the 2025 season, 25% of this passes have been in 2025 has been off target. That's per SIS. With these average depth to throw is 6.3 yards. Now, I want to point out Lawrence is at 28%, which is worse. But Lawrence's depth of target is like 7.9, basically 8 yards per throw. So he's really getting hammered from his deep ball throws that we've talked about over the season. Geno is 8 of 21 on his deep throws, while Trevor's 9 of 36. So one guy is 38%. That's Geno. Trevor Lawrence is 26%. So that means that Geno Smith is 12% better than Trevor Lawrence on deep balls. That changes the math a little bit. Now, again, I wanted to look at that Monteric Brown interception from Sunday's game, because when you look at this throw, when that ball is let go, let's look at this again. When that ball is let go from Geno Smith throwing from the near hash, that should have been a completed pass from most NFL quarterbacks. But Geno does not have the arm strength to get it there quickly enough. And that's one of the biggest things when I watched every single game from Geno in this 2025 season, that was pointed out to me is because that's where Jakobi Meyers eats, in that 10 to 15 yard area, especially on the sideline, because the receiver, he's going to eat in those areas. So unless you're throwing it inside of the hashes where he's going to be able to get those passes, and Geno did complete a few of those. I think we had the other one pulled up earlier on that crosser where Jakobi ends up taking the hit. Those types of plays are few and far between in this offense, but Geno didn't have the arm strength to get it outside. So while Jakobi Meyers may have been leading the team with 49 targets, they weren't necessarily great targets. They weren't timely targets, if that makes sense. And that's probably another reason that he wanted out of Las Vegas. Like, it makes total sense to me from his perspective. Like, all right, Trevor Lawrence may not be who Geno Smith is, but Trevor Lawrence is going to do one thing. And I had this conversation with Gus Logue on Duval 22 early this morning, is Trevor Lawrence is going to throw the ball with trust in between those hashes. Now, I don't know who's going to catch it, but the ball will be let go. Like, just being clear. The ball will be let go, and he's going to trust De'Ami Brown. He's going to trust Parker Washington. He's going to trust Brian Thomas Jr. to make those opportunities, or to not reach their hand out and throw it in. But the ball's going to be there. And from Jakobi Meyers' point of view, that is beneficial for him, because that's where his money is going to be able to be made. So I'm ecstatic for what this could be for him, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. A few things in the comments worth mentioning here too. Preston Tibbs, gotta say, I like the track we're on. James handled, of course he means Jimmy Stones, handled the trade deadline, as far as it looks, like a veteran GM. I didn't feel like anybody got overpaid for, and he did bring in a need. Now, there's plenty of comments here as well. Would have been nice to bring in a safety, says Radius, but hardly any of those moves. Wouldn't have mind-seated some D-line help. We'll get into that in a bit. You mentioned Jakobi does not mind going over the middle. Preston Tibbs there in the comments. Let's see. I thought I saw something else. I see your CJ Stroud comment, Storm. We'll get to that a little later.
Oh, that we will. Well, he said, a guy who doesn't mind going on over the middle, making those catches. Well, you pulled it up, Preston Tibbs. Like, BTJ and Travis Hunter haven't been slouches for contestants. Haven't had many chances to show it yet this season. Both have more than a 50% chance of coming down with it on those 50-50s. Those are good odds. Try it. But there's a difference between contested catches down the sideline with one-on-one opportunities and probably not going to take a hit most of the time. If you're taking a hit, you're taking it from the safety. So as long as the quarterback can look the safety off. you're probably fine as far as being safe from a receiver point of view. But that's a major difference between having a contested catch opportunity in an isolation route with just you and the cornerback, and then having a contested route situation in the middle of the field where you might get your head knocked off. These are not the same. And if you've played receiver, and Preston, I know you know what I'm talking about. If you played receiver in high school, even at that level, you know what I mean. They're just different, because one of these things you're absolutely using your peripherals, and you're like, all right, yeah, I know it's coming and I'm prepared for that. It just takes a different mindset.
And something else here in the comments that another point I think you're looking to make. Myers says Storms the Desert needs to be this regime's Marvin Jones, where he's supposed to be, and catch the dang football. He gets everything 2 hands on. You had a little tweet about that here from Josh Collier here on is that Twitter or Blue Sky? I think that's Twitter.
That's Twitter.
Yeah, this could be Trevor's new Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones in Trevor's best year was Mr. Reliable. Accurate take, 50%, 56.5% contested catch guy, but carried a 66% clip in 2022. Myers carrying a higher career percentage is fantastic. A reliable chain mover will open up so much for this offense. Yeah, I think there's something to that.
That's it, man. I mean, that's really it. Like, if you have another guy who gives you that ability, and whether you want to argue that that's Marvin Jones Jr., whether you want to argue that's early Zay Jones, because originally, remember, Zay Jones had his best contested catch rate also in his first year in Jacksonville. Like, that's who he was. If you want to argue that that's who the Jaguars thought De'Ami Brown was going to be, because early on in training camp, he was Trevor Lawrence's safety blanket, and he was catching damn near everything. And then all of a sudden, it just fell off when the games got real. So whoever that's going to be, like, whether or not this is the organization's way of saying we just need a better guy, or we need another guy in this wide receiver room because of injuries and everything else, or whether this is them giving up on the De'Ami Brown option because that was a 1-year trial period. He signed to that 1-year $10 million deal. So who knows what they think about this internally, or maybe they're just bringing in another guy with competition and just saying, let's raise the floor again because we just need someone to eat in the middle of this field. Who knows? But I think it definitely does just that. It raises the floor at bare minimum and gives them something to potentially build on going forward.
Yeah, I feel like, too, it was mentioned in the comments about missed opportunities and potential for trades. Obviously, I feel like everybody was going for Quinnen Williams.
So wait. Before we get into the trades that didn't happen, because I think we should, but I did want to wrap up with Jakobi, at least, if you don't mind, because the people were a little angry about the cost. And I had this argument with Gus Lowe also earlier this morning. So because some people's like, hey, man, it's expensive if you compare to previous years for a 6th-round pick and a 4th-round pick. Because people like to over-exaggerate how expensive a 4th-round pick really is. And
they really do. You're right about
the hit rate for a wide receiver in the 4th round is like 15%, like 14% something. But the cost is the cost. And I had this same statement that I made on the socials when someone said it was expensive. And it's really not that expensive, because if you play out all the scenarios, if he resigns, it's obviously worth it. If he doesn't resign, but he plays well enough to earn a moderately big contract anywhere else, then you're spending a 2026 4th-round draft pick to realistically get a 3rd or a 4th or maybe a 5th 2027 comp pick, depending on how the comp formula wraps up.
Oh, I didn't even think about compensatories. But you know what Jimmy Stones has also done silently is set the price tag for anybody who maybe wants to acquire him, if or maybe the Jags will sign and trade type scenario. There's a lot of things that could still be done to consider this a victory or not. This point is absolutely silly. I think there's an element of need that's very huge here. Let's keep in mind this is a former 1st-round pick you're getting with the 4th and the 6th, which makes anybody complaining about it absolutely nuts, in my opinion. Moreover, there's a little bit of a price to pay in that he's a relatively known commodity compared to being a draftee on the board. So you got 2 later in the process picks for a 1st-rounder that you can guarantee maybe isn't producing at a 1st-round level, but is a reliable player. None of this stuff is being considered for those people who are complaining, and it's an incomplete take. I'm not going to say it's something I expect Emmanuel Acho to do, but it is a completely incomplete take.
Sure. I'm not disagreeing at all. When we at this point, we are on the same team. I'm the one that's arguing that it's absolutely not expensive. And if you look at it from a year into the future, you might even
as much as we argue, we should agree on something, Travis.
I mean, if you look at this a year out, you could even be saying the Jaguars got a late third round pick in 2027, which is supposed to be a deeper draft for a 2026 fourth round pick. So you never know how this thing's going to work out. At the end of the day, they got a good player. At least we, for the most part, know that. Now, whether or not he's going to have time to infuse himself into the offense and learn everything and get it right here, that's a whole nother conversation. But I do agree with all the funny comments that if he gets out here and starts dropping the ball, this is going to be hilarious because this man does not drop balls. And that's the whole storyline.
All anyone's going to do is blame Trevor for it anyway. Who cares? Like
that would at least give some support to this issue, though. For the most part, this dude don't drop the ball. If he comes to Jacksonville and start dropping balls, I'm laughing, bro. Like I don't know what else to say about that piece. So I'm just being real.
Water.
But yeah, let's get into these moves that weren't made. That we've talked about the move that the Jaguars did make, the Jakobi Meyers trade. I think everyone is kind of patting them on the back for that, giving hand claps, golf claps, whatever. But there was a lot that wasn't done, and you already mentioned the big guy. Let's start talking about him, Quinn Williams. That's who everyone wanted, right?
I did,
man. I think everybody. I don't think there's anybody who says I don't want him. No. Quinn Williams from the New York Jets was traded to the Dallas Cowboys for a 2026 second round pick, 2027 first round pick, and Mozzie Smith. Now that sounds ridiculous. And if you think it sounds ridiculous, you're probably right because Jerry Jones does not understand trade valuations. And I'm just being real. So, like, you've had a lot of the rumors, you've seen a lot of the socials and a lot of the NFL insider reports that the Jaguars were at least in the communications, in the negotiations, trying to see if they can, swing a trade for him. And then the Dallas Cowboys came out of nowhere with a much, much, much richer offer than what the Jaguars were talking about. I've seen those same reports. I think it's very interesting. I would look at Jimmy Stone sideways if he were to pay anything remotely close to those prices, especially without a 2026 first.
So marked up. This is the guy that says blank them picks. I get it, but that's a little too much. It's a little too rich.
Don't blank them picks that much.
Perhaps we haven't get the picks compared to that. Good God. Anyways, yeah. I don't even know what to think of that.
But you also have the other rumors about Zach Sealer, the defensive tackle out of Miami. You see those rumors about what they're claiming that the Dolphins were asking for. I mean, they're talking about a second round draft pick for a 30-year-old guy who's having a down year. Whew. It's one of those things where you're like, that's not going to happen, especially with that contract. I'm just being real. Like, so for the most part, if that's even remotely true that the Jaguars even had interest or just talking about those numbers, I see why Jimmy Stones may not have made a deal elsewhere for an interior D-line, especially being a draft and develop team that they are. And they've basically said it out loud on very many occasions. That is who they are. And this is expected to be around a 2-year build that they're ahead of schedule on. Cool. There's also the safety position. I was told that the Jaguars at least reached out to find out what the cost was for Minkah Fitzpatrick. And obviously nothing happened there. So, you knew they were interested at least, in just kind of evaluating what it looks like. And then per Ryan O'Halloran, the Jaguars had safety George Odom in for a visit. He's primarily special teamer. It was in the second team All Pros special teamer back in 2022. And he's spent some time in Pittsburgh also. Like, he seems to be reasonably fine as far as the special teams ace, but he's not really going to give you as much as far as a starting level safety play. But that's kind of what one of your backups is going to be, unfortunately. And I don't know if you had any tight ends in mind as far as
for me, I get it that Hunter and Munt haven't necessarily been doing great, but at this point they probably kick some tires, Travis, but let's be honest, at this point in a couple weeks you're due to get Brenton Strange back, and really that's an indicator to me that his recovery is going well, that they didn't pull the trigger on something. If they had made a move, we would know that soon after we would probably hear about the plug being pulled on Brenton Strange's season or something like that, to where he would have been extended into his time missing. At least, this is me reading the tea leaves. Something I want to get in the comments real quick. I've seen a lot of questions, about, I mentioned a first rounder. I didn't mean to imply that Meyers was a first rounder. I should have worded it better by saying, even if it was a first round pick, you have this, even if he's an undrafted player, seeing his value being so much more than that, your spending of the 4th and 6th round picks makes a lot more sense in that way, right? Because you see that he's a producing commodity. I wouldn't give up a first round pick. That's a little too much. We talked about that, the expense of a first round pick being high with Quinn Williams. But yeah, no, I didn't mean to paint the picture that Jakobi Meyers was a first round pick. So that's my bad.
I got you. No, hey, but the only tight end I had in my mind, as far as the Jaguars were concerned, I mean, that ship sailed as soon as the Green Bay Packers, like Luke Musgrave, and as soon as Tucker Kraft tore his ACL, that dream went out the window immediately. So, like, even if they had any remote interest there, that would have been done immediately, because the Packers would not be letting that guy go at that point after that injury. So, I mean, as far as options are concerned, I mean, dang, Storm the Desert shot right there. Calais Campbell would have been a good get for a day 3 pick, and Vibes guy, he definitely could help shore up the pass rush. Wondering if Arizona is thinking they stand a chance to make the playoffs. They absolutely do. If they would have lost that game, I think that would have been a real conversation, especially with their quarterback now being placed on IR. But Jacoby Brissett is playing well, playing much better than Kyler Murray was. I mean, and Jaguars will face them in 2 weeks. 3 weeks? 2 weeks? I don't know how long it is.
And let's not act like Calais Campbell doesn't have ties to Arizona as a franchise as well. Like, he spent a significant period of time there before he came to Jax. So that could be an element of it as well. I don't know.
We don't claim that. He's all Duval, whatever. We don't care about none of the other stuff. So as far as options are concerned, man, I mean, free agency out there, like, it's obviously in the middle of the NFL football season. It's going to be a little bit bare bones, right? You got Asante Samuel, who's now cleared following his offseason neck surgery, so he's doing visits with the Green Bay Packers. Well, we know who else used to coach for the Green Bay Packers, right? Anthony Campanelli. So maybe there could be some kind of interest there if they think they might have some opportunities or need for at cornerback. Maybe Kendall Fuller. I don't know about that, but the Christian Wilkins thing, off-field stuff, whatever the heck's going on there between his rehab and all the other stuff, it's just that ship has sailed. Maybe safety. You got Justin Simmons and Marcus Williams. That's basically
even in a fire sale, the Titans weren't gonna do it. That was Simmons, man. I'm just throwing that out there. They're still paying probability for that.
That's really all that's out there. So again, if you're looking for a little bit of depth, maybe at safety or something along those lines, that's the best you're probably going to hope for. But otherwise, help is not on the way. What you have is what you have. And unfortunately, I don't blame Jimmy Stones for not playing the prices for the defensive tackles that are out there. And there aren't any other options unless you're willing to take a chance on a guy with off-field potentially issues or medical issues or anything like that. And you probably don't want to bring that into your locker room in the middle of a rebuild when you're just trying to rebuild the culture and everything surrounding that. That's hard, man.
That's a good take. And keep in mind, I think the truth of the matter is this, and you've alluded to it in the past, that 5-3 at this point in the season, granted, you're just one big giant Devon Hamilton smackdown away from being 4-4, but details. 5-3 is certainly in August when we were talking about Travis is definitely an overachievement for this point in the season, right? You and I both at one point picking this as an 8-win team. I think they're just performing ahead of schedule, and there's an element of, shall we say, patience taking place. To
be clear, I said the floor was 8 wins. I said I predicted them to be 10. Just to be clear.
All right. Hey, listen, I'll wear all of it. I'll even be the one to remind the planet that the crackheadiest take I had was that they win the South. Okay? That was a thing that happened.
That ain't sounding very crackheady-ish. That's sounding more like weed. That's mid. That's right on par.
Like I just got out of rehab at this rate. You know what I'm saying? So
oh man. So no, I mean, it's not sounding very off base right now. If you just want to be clear about it, like, I mean, between the moves that the other guys in the AFC South are making right now, it's seeming like the Jaguars have a puncher's chance to seriously steal this AFC South right now. I mean, you got the Titans. They traded away Dramont Jones, a defensive lineman. He had 4.5 sacks this season. They recently traded away both their starting cornerbacks, Jarvis Brownlee last month and Roger McCreary last week. As they're just racking up, late round draft picks. They're 1-8. You got the Texans. They most recently traded away. I mean, their most recent trade was Cam Robinson back in September. You know that name. They're just for flipping 7th round picks, and they didn't do anything at the deadline because they're 3-5. Which that sounds to me like they don't believe in themselves to be able to come back from that 3-5. And I'm like, oh dang, that sounds like you're giving up. I mean, all right,
especially with other things that have happened. More on that later. But
you got the Jaguars, your Jakobi Meyers trade. You got then Tyson Campbell, and then obviously you got the Colts. I mean, yeah, you can pull it up. And then you got the Colts trade, and that's the big one. Obviously, they got Sauce Gardner from the Jets doing their fire sale for a 2026 and a 2027 first round pick plus 2024 second round pick wide receiver Adonai A.D. Mitchell, which is a lot.
You're sliding an awful lot of chips in the middle of the table. You're paying dollars when you're believing in dimes. You see what I did there, Travis? That's what I'm trying to tell the people. I don't get it. That's a little much for me.
That feels like I can't even say I don't have a comparison for it because if it was just like giving Danny Dimes a contract, a big contract, a really dang big contract just to put you back like 3 years, I would say it was comparable to maybe like the Blake Bortles situation for the Jaguars in 2017 to 2018. This is so much bigger than that.
I agree.
Because it's so much more when you were giving away 2 first round picks for a cornerback and your recent second round pick receiver for a cornerback and you're not a Super Bowl contender. And if the Colts truly believe that they are a Super Bowl contender, then Lord, they live in a different world than I do. And that's possible.
We found the new crackhead he is take. Am I right?
I mean, it's quite possible because again, these NFL guys, NFL coaches, and general managers and such, they do think differently than a lot of folks. And sometimes that's what gets them in trouble, is being in that bubble and not being able to see what it is versus what they want it to be. Like, I do get that, especially if that's your job and that's all you're surrounded around. But overall, that's obviously not an NFL quarterback. That's not an NFL overall, Super Bowl, I should say, quarterback and a Super Bowl passing operation for the Colts. To be making the trade to that level says you are ready. And this is where you're striking when the iron is hot. And that's wild to me. So, good luck, Colts. I mean, you probably love to see it in Duval. Good job, y'all. Congratulations. But man, it's gonna be interesting. Timmy Devil.
Yeah, Timmy Devil mentions Brown, Parker, BTJ, Myers, Hunter, and Strange. A lot of mouths to feed. What I hear is a good problem to have, Timmy.
Right.
I mean, what are we doing right now? This isn't.
Did you say a lot of mouths to feed? Like that's a bad thing? Nah. If you have a diva, it's a bad thing. If you have the right people in your organization, that's a great thing. A lot of mouths to feed, but if all they care about is winning, that ain't too much to feed. That's just enough. The goal is to win the games, man. Like I don't see a problem with that at all. And Hunter's not even here right now. So if you're talking 2026, maybe, but 2026 will work itself out in 2026. Like for the moment, I think it's a great situation.
On that, I shan't front. And yeah, I think I can't find the comment. I forgot who said it, but I feel like Brenton Strange coming back is going to be a bigger impact than anything they would have been able to trade for. So I think that's another good reason for them to not overpay, overspend at the trade deadline here.
Right. I need Trevor Lawrence to have as many options as possible, and just to be able to scan the room and just say, "Hey, man, I'm going to the guy who's open. I don't have to force feed it to this one guy." And maybe that's a great thing for them because originally it seemed like they kind of wanted Brian Thomas Jr. to be the guy who gets force fed the ball, and now they're in a situation where they can spread it around and still have not one but 2 guys in both Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter to kind of take the tops off defenses, assuming. De'Ami Brown even potentially could be that option if he can get everything right and kind of get back on track.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot to go with there. I didn't know if there's anything else you wanted to touch on from Sunday as yet. I know you showed the Monteric Brown interception there too, which I got to be honest, thank you for doing that. That ball came out slower from Geno than I thought. Not taking any away from Monteric's read, but yeah, I can.
It was a great read, but this wasn't something that I came to a conclusion on that video. I actually had the thought process even when the Greg Newsome pass breakup on Jakobi Meyers earlier in the game. I had the same thought process when looking at his film beforehand. I'm like, oh, Geno's arm just isn't there, and it happens to all NFL quarterbacks. I mean, just being real, I'm not like throwing shade at the guy. Just saying,
Drew Brees.
Objectively
that
true.
happened to him at his age, you know.
It's just what it is. So when you can't run a lot of the curl routes because the timing's off, or you have to throw it way earlier before the break, and just it's nearly blind throws, it just changes the math of what all this looks like. And unfortunately, so I feel bad for the receiving corps because that's probably why they're struggling so much, at least part of it, at least. And it is what it is. He's here now. He's going from the team with 2 wins to the team with 5. So congratulations, Jakobi.
A point I wanted to bring in here, I know we were moving off of the trade stuff here, but for all the concerns surrounding the salary cap and all that, Jordan makes a great point. Every year, they seem to be increasing the salary cap. So, hey, if you're planning with that in mind, it doesn't look like the bubble's bursting in the NFL anytime soon. So, yeah, I think that's a very worthy thing to point out moving forward here.
Yes, and we are going to get into some of the conversation surrounding the defense on this Friday's Duval Dive, just because it was the day after the trade deadline. We obviously wanted to talk a lot about the moves that happened and the moves that we thought maybe should have happened or hope would have happened. But also I wanted to have that conversation because I think the Texans quarterback situation is going to be a little bit similar to a backup quarterback, I should say, situation. Should be somewhat similar to what you saw from the Geno Smith situation this past Sunday. And also that means that we need to have a closer conversation surrounding what the defense did and didn't do, especially in that fourth quarter, because I thought the defense played dang well until you got to like towards that, let's say, end of the third quarter, early fourth quarter, when they just started missing tackles, man. And I put this on the socials earlier, like after the game, because in quarters 1 through 3, Ventrell Miller and Foye Oluokun were the only missed tackles that I counted on my rewatch, and I grade this pretty lightly. Just being real, former defensive guy, I'm going to generally try to give them the edge as long as it's not additional yards after contact picked up. I'm not generally going to give a guy a missed tackle if the cavalry shows up right after. And even then, I have the 2 missed tackles early on, but then you have in the fourth quarter and overtime, and almost all of these are really just the fourth quarter. It's not even really overtime. It's like you got 2 missed tackles by Foye in the fourth quarter, a missed tackle by Antonio Johnson, a missed tackle by Ventrell Miller, a missed tackle by Monteric Brown. And again, almost all of that is exclusively in the fourth quarter. And I'm like, dude, that's what this defense is built on. They show phantom pressure and they blitz with the hope that the quarterback's going to throw the ball and check it down to these running backs, check it down to these tight ends, and you're going to rally. You cannot then have missed tackles on these guys in space and allow them to pick up that extra yardage. It kept happening with Brock Bowers. It happened with Genty and out of the backfield. You can't have as good as a game that they had, and they did from 3/4 of that game, to then have as bad as a fourth quarter as they had, mainly because the penalties and the missed tackles. They got to get that shored up, because that's exactly what's going to likely happen this week, is another quarterback that's going to pepper them short and force them to make tackles in space. You got to figure it out, man.
No, I think that's a fantastic take. And then you mentioned the backup quarterback situation, such that it was, Travis. Obviously, that's connected to CJ Stroud. That isn't going to be involved in the contest. And I know, listen, I don't even know what to say, but CJ Stroud really going down that Trevor Lawrence path with concussions and CTE and all, says Storm the Desert. For those that may not remember from last year, you card carrying members of the Duval Devout that were under a rock. Aziz Al-Shaair bashing Trevor Lawrence when he was clearly already down.
Clearly.
And then here's the thing. And we're not saying we enjoy CJ Stroud getting hit like this. But there is a fine line, and correct me where you think I'm getting it wrong, where Aziz Al-Shaair is staring Trevor in the whites of his eyes and clearly juggernauts him, targeting his face mask. This play,
right.
the defender comes from behind. Stroud isn't even down yet when contact is made. This isn't at least this initial angle isn't even helmet. It's a helmet where you could see what's happening here
in the chest.
on the left. Yeah. So these things are not alike, as most objective people, which I am on this panel, could tell you.
No, not alike at all. I mean, they weren't alike. I mean, again, one guy was like 6 to 7 yards away from them when Trevor Lawrence starts the slide. Mm-hmm. The other one was a late slide by CJ, which they don't even argue. Demeco Ryans didn't even argue it, and that it was a timely slide or anything like that. He was just arguing that it should have been flagged. And I'm like, dude, you sounding mighty different nowadays when it's your quarterback getting hit. But no, actually, no. I think we have the clip.
He slid, and the guy, came up and hit him. As I see, it's unnecessary roughness. He hit the quarterback when he's sliding and giving himself up. If I'm incorrect on the rule, I've seen that happen multiple times, with our guys, and we get the penalty. But for some reason, it just didn't happen there. So,
do you get the penalty, Demeco? Do you really? Are we sure about that? Are we sure about that?
Bro, come on, man. He knows. So he knows he has no leg to stand on after everything that was said in just not even a year ago, man. God don't like ugly. And I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm not saying this God got something to do with these boys that take car accidents every day as for their job, but nah, man. Come on, bro. That's obviously it was a bad hit when your dude did it. And if you want to argue, be consistent and say it was a bad hit for both, then at least I might even hear you. But that was never the case. It was an obviously bad hit from Al-Shaair. And this one was a closer late slide by CJ. So, I mean, unfortunately, Demeco's already announced that he is unlikely, in his words, that CJ is going to play this week. So the Jaguars will be seeing another backup quarterback. And I'm sure everyone in Jacksonville is very excited about playing another backup quarterback because we have such great success against backups.
Oh, no. You're throwing all the state champion.
Yeah, so that should be great. That should be fun. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to find out exactly how the team prepares for Davis Mills. And I got some thoughts about Anthony Campanelli's game plan from this past week. And I really do hope that they change it up and do something a little bit different and not just do what they do and try to dictate to the offense, because that did not work out very well in the fourth quarter against Geno Smith. And I got some thoughts. I'm looking forward to that on Friday, bro.
Something else I'll add in here, too, that I see Storm the Desert throwing in. Trevor's diving head first at this point, and it's safer. He's looking for himself, after himself, instead of leaving it up to the defender and refs to protect him if he slides. Absolutely correct. Storm the Desert, that is not the only place I've even heard that take. QB coach for the UCF, Mackenzie Milton, former UCF quarterback who suffered a huge injury himself. Nothing to do with the slide, just, he has a perspective on it. But diving head first allows you to take control. I think there's something to that. Deliver the punishment instead of sitting back and letting it come to you is certainly a fine technique, in my opinion. That being said, let's not seek out challenging maybe a TJ Watt, but, I don't think the Jags play the Steelers this year, so that should be relatively safe.
No, man. So yeah, I think that actually makes sense but you don't want the quarterback's head to be involved in anything. That's the only piece that I do understand. Like, there's a give and take on both sides. You don't want a quarterback getting a concussion, getting kicked in the head or something stupid because they're diving head first. But obviously, sliding is not working for very many quarterbacks across the NFL. I think a lot of quarterbacks have had the same complaint. So at this point, I don't know what the real answer is, other than just you got to protect yourself. And even then, sometimes, like the Trevor Lawrence situation, it doesn't matter how much you protect yourself when you're playing a game that involves getting just pummeled by 300-pound guys who run a freaking 4.5 40. Like, there's not much you can do sometimes.
I don't care. I don't care if you're Trevor Lawrence or not. Don't do that, please. Thank you.
And Topa says, and we play Tyler Warren twice. I mean, you do a lot more than play Tyler Warren twice. You play Tyler Warren. You play Trey McBride. You got, Oronde Gaddison in just 2 weeks. So yeah, you got a few tight ends on this schedule. I mean, that's like 5 games already that's left on this schedule. And they got to get this thing. Yeah, they got to get this thing right, man.
I thought you were still talking about hitting quarterbacks. Yeah, no, at the tight end spot, there's still some challenging pieces left. They're not Brock Bowers, but you can't sneeze at them. And I agree with that take.
Yeah, Bowers actually didn't have a significant amount of separation. I believe when I looked at the stats after the fact, he was actually below the league average on his separation. He was just a dog at catching these balls. I mean, 12 catches, like in the touchdown on Greg Newsome. Like, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? It was a freaking guy who has 4 inches on him. Sorry, pause. 4 inches of height on him and 30 pounds. And he was in bumper run perfect position. He can't let the dude get on top of him in the route. Because then he's gonna just like jump ball him. He's gonna post him up. He plays the perfect position. He tried to get his hand in there and still misses the ball. Like, what do you do there?
I mean, the one-handed catch for the touchdown. It wasn't toe drag swag. What is that? Rear end blend? I don't know what we're calling it, but he makes this play. Anyways, I got nothing else, man.
Yeah.
They caught you in there. Phrasing. Bowers is
same thing about Chase and JSN.
There
will be guys who are just going to get their yards, and your best hope is that you can allow those guys to get off in football terms.
Crazy.
And and then you still find a way to shut everybody else down and still win the game. That's always going to be the hope. The Jaguars were able to squeak out that win. One play from maybe not, so much, but they found a way to do it. And I do want to say this before Friday, just so folks have time to chew on it at least. If the Jaguars if that just one play would have won different. The Tyler Lockett play when he's wide open and Devon Hamilton doesn't get 3 feet off the ground and they catch that ball. Do you predict the Jacksonville Jaguars to beat the Houston Texans even with the backup quarterback?
I do.
I'm going to leave folks with that question to chew on, because I've seen way too many people say the Jaguars are guaranteed to win this game or they're definitely going to win this game and whatever else. And I'm just like, if they lose that game, you feel significantly different. You're sad today. You're pissed off, everything else. But because they won on a play that was wide open, I just want folks to think about that. That's all.
Let the members of the Duval Devout chew on it, because I think you make the point about their excitement versus others. But as the neutralist party in this exchange, I think I still would. But we'll talk more about it on Friday, I'm sure. Yep. All the members of the Duval Devout, you Duval Divers up in here with us, will have things to say. Goodness knows you did in the comments today. Goodness gracious. I had a lot of trouble keeping up with you guys today. There was a lot going on in the comments. Great job. As always, champion. Tell the world where you can be found.
You can find all my writing covering the Jacksonville Jaguars, bigcatcountry.com. Find me on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes. If you are listening to the sound of my voice on the Duval Dive YouTube, please click that like button. Don't leave the stream without clicking the like button. Don't be a hater. Come on, man. We all Duval. It's Duval versus all y'alls. And if you are part of Duval, please click that like button. Please and thank you. Send us shout out to all of the commenters. You guys keep this thing going on, and it's true. Again, we could stop this podcast at 20 minutes every time and be just ecstatic about it. And the fact is, you guys with these comments keep this thing going, allow us to do double time every pod. So shout out to y'all, the true MVPs. bigcatcountry.com, Duval Dives, like and subscribe, or rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts, and let them know where you can be found, sir.
Of course, you could find me not only here on the Duval Dive with my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes. You could, of course, find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. Listen, the point that Travis makes about the powers that be telling us 20 minutes is the ideal time for a pod, you guys keep making it fun in the comments, so we keep doing the thing. So make sure you recognize that you are part of this show. It's a thing, y'all. But check out my work as well with the Bolt Blitz Uncut. I'm the producer for that podcast with Booger Peters, 80 Simons, and the crew there. Make sure you check that out. Of course, there'll be the instant reaction. It's going to be interesting when the Chargers and Jags play. But hey, I can assure you, I remain as neutral as ever on both shows. It is what it is. Of course, check out my writings with the black and gold banneret.com. I will cover Friday's space game as UCF hosts Houston. They hope to actually get win number 5 so they can get a little closer to bowl eligibility potential status. We'll see how that goes. Make sure you check that out. BlackandGoldBanneret.com, as well as the Night Shift podcast for the post-game show, and check my work covering men's and women's basketball throughout the season there as well. My coverage of the Orlando Magic. I will be in the building on Sunday, oddly enough, you might see me from an interesting locale on Sunday for the Duval Dive Live. We'll just put it that way. So, for all you Duval Divers kicking rear ends still in the comments, for my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes, Kyle Nash, doing the game. Until next time, everyone, class dismissed.